Hello guys, welcome to the channel. It's me again with Merdan, and it's good to see you, shiny, briny faces. Why am I always saying briny? Shiny and happy faces, a beautiful day. So yesterday I was thinking about to make a video about the camera basics, aperture, shutter speed, ISO, but I realized that aperture will take a little bit more time. It's a little bit more complex topic than shutter speed and ISO, so I'm gonna kind of make two videos. So today I'm gonna talk about aperture, and ooh, that would be good. In the other video I'm gonna talk about shutter speed and ISO together. So this is fundamental, this is basics, this is the backbone of photography, and you can't skip it, you can't ignore it, because it's very important. These things control exposure, depth of field, motion blur, and digital noise. But in my opinion, this thing is more important. You have to think about exposure before thinking about depth of field, motion blur, and digital noise. Exposure is amount of light coming into the camera sensor. So basically how light and how dark your image is. You know, I don't like this overexposed or ugly or dark without any details of photos. They just ugly, so it's very important to pay attention to the exposure. Ooh, let's get started. Ooh, I pumped, hell yeah. Aperture. In my opinion, aperture have a biggest impact on the photo, and understanding of aperture can open a lot of creative ways of taking that pictures. So there is an analogy that helped me to understand what is aperture. We're all human beings, right? And we already use the aperture naturally every day, unconsciously. It is in our eyes, here. So we have a pupil of our eyes, right? Pupil. So for example, if I'm in a dark room, in the darkness in general, my pupil becomes very wide to let in as much light as possible. That's why we see in the dark. Or if I stand right in front of the sunlight, and there is a lot of light coming into my eyes, my pupil becomes narrow to compensate the amount of light is coming into my eyes. So basically the camera lens works the same. It has its own pupil that becomes wide or narrow. So this is the aperture. It kind of controls that. So how do we measure the aperture? If you take your camera and look into your viewfinder, you will find the weird number like 3.5, 4, 6, 5.6, 8, 11, and 22. Jesus, who created that number? It depends on the lens, what kind of numbers you have, like the minimum and the maximum of them. It calls F number. And by the way, you can find the same number in your LCD. If you look to your LCD, there would be the letter F and the same numbers next to it. So this is F number or F stop. This number affects how narrow and how wide the aperture is. Not comfortable. So it scales from here to here. Again, depending on the lens. Aperture can be confusing, I agree, it can be confusing. You can like, what, aperture? What is that? I don't understand. So I don't want to confuse you, so let's focus on first on how that number affects the exposure and depth of field. So exposure, let's look at these three photos. From these pictures we can see that the higher the number, the darker the picture, which means that if you crank your aperture till 22 or to your max, in my case my maximum is 22, you will get a darker picture because the lens takes less light from the environment. And why does it happen? For example, if you want the brighter photo, right, the brighter opposite, not dark but the brighter one, then you lower the number, the pupil in the lens becomes wider and it gets more light from the environment. That's why the picture is brighter, and vice versa. If you crank your aperture to the high number, then the picture will be darker because the pupil of the lens becomes more narrow, and now you can see anything. That's why the picture is dark. Depth of field. In order to explain you how I understand what is depth of field, let me give you two examples. So if I want to take a picture of landscape, right, or if you want to take the picture of landscape and you want that wide, beautiful, like very wow picture of this wow scene, for example in Wyoming or in Turkmenistan where I'm from, and you want every part be crispy and sharp, then what I would do, I would crank the aperture to 8 or 11. On the other hand, if I take picture of people, right, take a portrait, and I want the face of the person and the person itself isolate, I want it to be more in focus and want to blur the background, then I lower the number of aperture to like 3.5, 4 or 5.6. This is what all photographers refer to when they talk about deep depth of field and shallow depth of field. The first example was the example of deep depth of field, when every part in the whole picture in focus and all sharp and all crispy, like, you know, crispy just like the chips, crispy. I think I love this word, Jesus, I'm telling it all the time. The second example is the example of shallow depth of field, when you want to isolate your subject and this subject is only on focus but the background and foreground is blurred, right? When you want to emphasize, when you want to show that this subject is important, or when you take pictures of portraits, faces of people, to show others their eyes, their like beauty, you know, that's what I mean. And to be honest, at this point I'm not really sure and I don't fully understand why the aperture affects the depth of field and how it happens, how do they relate it. So I guess there is a lot to learn for me. We are all learning during the life. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to be consistent to make these videos because I don't know, I just love it. I love being creative, create stuff, and trying to give value and trying to share with my knowledge and whatever I learn. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you didn't, and share with your friends. I will wait you guys in the next video. Did you think that I'm gonna do that again? No. Bye.